Gary, would you say that you feel like you've lost control of your real estate practice?
Chris, that is a very timely question because I feel like and I sense that a lot of real estate agents have that feeling of loss of control over their real estate business. And, with the settlement that came down on August 17th, with the DOJ breathing down our necks, with the state associations, the MLS and the brokers like really harping over every single thing that we say and do right now, I feel like a lot of real estate agents, especially buyer agents, feel like they have completely lost control, lost sight of the end goal, lost control of their business, their income, their next commission. And that is a very uncomfortable place to be.
Well, there are solutions to the uncertainty. I would say probably the biggest thing that one could focus on is listings because listings are a that's a way you can gain control, right? You've built your whole career around being a listing expert agent. Today, we're going to get into the 5 listing expert agent strategies to win more listings, despite the chaos, despite the uncertainty, despite the change that's happening. That's what the topic of for today's Marketing Club podcast. Let's dig in. Gary, it seems like now more than ever, and we're always saying that, by the way, it seems like now more than ever, it would be a good time to focus on getting a few more listings. We like to joke around saying that seems like there are a few problems that can't be solved in real estate by a few more listings. And I kind of feel like that might be the case right now.
It absolutely is the case, especially in a time frame when, if I'm representing buyers, it's more and more difficult to explain my value proposition in a very condensed manner.
Mm.
It's more and more difficult to get showing agreements or buying buyer rep agreements. It's more and more difficult to ask a buyer to pay for my compensation if I can't get it compensated somewhere else. And so where does that leave me as
Mm.
a real estate agent? And by the way, Chris, it also right now, as you say, more than ever, it's more important that buyer's agents gain more skills
Mhm.
in order to convey their value to a buyer. And so, if that's the case, then the question that comes up to my mind is if I can't control that and it's more and more difficult and I have to get these skills anyway, why would I not just focus on listings?
Well, especially when the skill sets are are going to be very similar, right? The
Right.
process of finding a customer, showing them why they need to hire you over somebody else, so showing them why they need to pay your fees, and that is the same activity that you do when you're working with sellers. And so, if you have to get that skill now as a buyer's agent, why not at least? You don't have to change your business, but maybe you could supplement your business, maybe supplement some security in your business by focusing on listings.
In addition to that, I do want to add a couple of additional benefits
Mm.
to becoming a listing agent. Number one, it takes a whole lot less of your time, energy, and effort. Once you secure a listing versus buyer, the amount of time that you're going to work on that is going to be a fraction
Mm.
of the amount of time and energy and effort. So there's a lot that you can control there. Plus, you're not going to have to go back and negotiate and cajole and try and squeeze out your compensation. It's already in your listing agreement.
Mm.
In addition to that, Chris, listings are leveraged to get more listings and more buyers. So if it's a win, 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 win for me, why would I not at least work a portion of my business on securing listings?
Well, let's get into the 5 listing expert agent strategies that we want to share
Sure.
with everybody today. I'm going to rattle them off real quick and then let's talk about each one of these. The first thing is branding and reputation. Maybe not something we necessarily always think about when we're working with buyers, but branding and reputation is a really big deal when you're working with sellers. We're also going to talk about market knowledge and experience, which I do believe translates both for buyers and sellers when you're working with them. However,
Sure.
there's a really specific set of skills when it comes to market knowledge and experience that you need to have when you're working with sellers, and we'll get into that. You need to have a really effective listing appointment process. Your listing business oftentimes can be made or broken by the process that you have to be able to walk people through that listing appointment process and the signed listing agreement that's going to come out of that. We're going to get into a little bit of the property marketing plan, which is well, once you get that listing agreement, how are you going to get that listing sold? So you need to have a really effective property marketing plan, not just to sell the listing, but also it's part of your value proposition. It's part of one of the reasons why someone needs to hire you. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some listing lead activities and campaigns, because you could have all these skills, but if you don't have the ability to generate listings and to generate listing leads, then you're not going to be very busy. So let's dive into the first of these, which is branding and reputation.
Chris, did you know that the number one determining factor that sellers use in choosing their real estate listing agent is the agent's reputation? Like, this is a study done by the National Association of Realtors that is the number one determining factor year over year over year. But my question for you, coming from the branding, reputation, marketing aspect of this, like, how do I,
Mhm.
as a listing agent, make sure that I do that?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to ask ourselves is, what am I doing to define and amplify the reputation that I have in the marketplace as a listing expert agent, right? Oftentimes we'll joke around, like on social media. I can appreciate a cat video just as much as the next person. My daughters like to send me cat videos, little cute cat videos. But if I were on social media to only post about cat videos all the time, people would think of me as Chris, the cat video guy,
Chris the cat video guy.
not somebody who can help them list, market, and sell a home. And that's just one little small dynamic. It's much, much greater to define what your reputation is. It'll happen, but a more powerful approach is to actually define, how do I want people to think of me? How do I want people to refer me? When people consider working with me, what are the main promises that they have in their mind of what I'm going to deliver for them when they work with me? So that's just step one of defining what it is that I want, because if we don't define it, the market will, and it won't be a powerful definition.
So I really like what you said there, Chris, because that is the difference between being very proactive in creating and defining my own reputation versus just letting the marketplace define what my reputation
Mhm.
is. And quite often, if we just allow that to happen organically, we might not be satisfied with what that
Here's the
reputation is.
problem with it, is there's just too many people in real estate, to be honest with you, right? If you were
Right.
to look at the number of consumers that are out there, and then divide that by the number of real estate agents that are out there, you're going to find that there's a surplus of real estate professionals. Now, I would say that there's not a surplus of professionals, but there are a surplus of license holders out there. But what that does is that contributes to the noise, and that makes it hard for a value proposition, a reputation to be defined. And so the first step is to define it, but then it also introduces another problem. There's a lot of noise in the marketplace. And
Hmm.
so we have to have an effective way to not just define the reputation that we have, but also to amplify it. Because if that's how sellers are going to choose us, then they need to be equipped with the knowledge of what our reputation is before they talk to us. That's where the
Yeah.
real power happens, right? So, I think a really good question to ask yourself, that anybody could ask themselves, is, what are the concrete reasons why somebody should hire me as a listing agent? Right? Like, just write it down or start writing it down. By the way, some of the strategies that we're going to share with you here, they are going to contribute to the reasons why somebody should hire you. So one might make the argument that these 5 listing expert agent strategies, yeah, many of them need to be included in the reasons why somebody needs to hire you, and then you need to define it, and then you need to amplify it. I think one of the important components to our reputation, if you're going to be working with sellers, is actually our second point, or a second listing expert agent strategy, which is not market knowledge and experience and expertise, right? If they think that you're a they're not going to think you're a really good listing agent if they think you don't understand the market, they don't think you understand the neighborhood, or if you don't understand that area. And so that, Gary, is or the reason why our second strategy, to become a listing expert agent, or to win listings, is to have a tremendous amount of market knowledge, expertise, and experience. How does one acquire that? Because
Well, so it's so interesting that you say that because it just reminds me of one of my first listing appointments I ever had.
mm,
And the fact that my prospective seller had more market knowledge and knowledge about what was happening with
mhm,
listings in the neighborhood than I had was embarrassing to me. They're like, "Oh, have you seen that house down the street? It's been on the market for 59 days." And I'm like, "I
I
have
didn't
not
know
seen that yet."
that. So
Well, did you know that the Smiths 2 blocks over, they sold their house and they got, like, $825 per square foot? How did they do that? Like, I don't
good
I don't
question. Good
know.
yeah, you don't wanna have deer in the headlights situation when it comes to market knowledge in the neighborhood that you're trying to
And
serve.
making stuff up o on the fly is certainly not a good strategy, and so how do we take care of that? How do we not be the deer in the headlights? How do we not be the ignorant realtor meeting with the client? The number one way is preview inventory all the time. You've got to
Mm,
know what's happening in your marketplace, and, especially if you're specializing within a specific geographic region, or perhaps you're specializing within a sub market like condos or first time home
mhm,
buyers or whatever it may be. Whatever you're focusing on as your specialization and specialty, you've got to have market knowledge. The best way to do that is preview
mm.
inventory all the time and know more than what these prospective sellers can find online or through word of mouth through the neighbors. That's
Yeah, there's
absolutely
a really
critical.
big difference between seeing a home online versus actually going and seeing it in person and previewing it and
Yeah,
understanding the condition and really being able to put the real the real world knowledge of that home, which you can only see
absolutely.
by experiencing it, that you have to have. Also, I mean, if you think about it, how could you possibly convey an effective pricing strategy to a seller if you don't know how that home compares condition, price, et cetera, to the other homes that are on the market, right? Like it's
This
impossible.
is a perfect example, Chris, as I went previewing property this weekend. I do this as a regular
Mhm.
practice in my marketplace. And I went and previewed this home that I thought was a comparable to a listing that I'm going to be taking soon. And so I wanted to go see it. And
Mhm.
so I went and saw it. They were hosting an open house, and I walked in. The photos online did not do this home justice. In
Mm.
fact, the opposite.
Oh, interesting.
Um, I walked in and I'm like, this is not, am I in the
We got
right
the
home?
address right? Where are we?
Where am I? And then I start touring the home and I like walk through the floor plan. I look at the architectural lack of detail
Mm,
and I'm like, this is not a comp,
mm,
and it's priced above where my seller wants to price. And all of a sudden, if I'm just looking online, I would have looked at that and said, okay, we've got to
mm,
price well below this home because of the larger square footage, the lot size, etc. Now that I go through it and I see it, I'm like, okay, this is a teardown. Like nobody is going to be able to do anything with this property. But before I had that market knowledge, what would I have done? I would have gone in with just data points,
mm,
and data points, to price a home with data points is unprofessional. To price a home
mm,
with market knowledge, that's professional. And so
mm,
that was the difference for me. And it's always a good reminder for me to not be lazy and actually get up and go preview, get into the marketplace, put my boots on the ground and go see what's going on.
I would say that's the only way to understand what real home values are in a neighborhood
Correct.
is by having that boots on the ground approach. Because, quite frankly, the photos, you don't know what the real condition is. You don't know what assumptions that the seller or the listing agent had made. Heck, you don't even know if the listing agent priced it or if the seller just set the price for that home and the listing agent just kind of followed along with it, right? And so, you have to go look at those homes and preview them so that you can have like that real understanding of value, because ultimately isn't that one of the activities that we need to do is to create an effective pricing strategy that's only going to come through market knowledge and having the
Well,
experience.
talking about market knowledge, it's not just about the real estate, like the homes that are selling
Hmm.
and what's for sale. It's also what is happening in the community,
Mm,
understanding what is happening in the area and the neighborhood. This is what we call area and neighborhood expertise.
mm,
Here's another example. In this same neighborhood that I'm talking about with this house, there is a development that is about to be torn down. The
mm,
city has been battling with the developer. They finally came to agreement. Had I not been on the forum to understand what was happening, I would not understand that they are about to demolish this and do a million square foot development less than 1 mile from this house.
That's gonna have a big impact on that
Huge
community,
impact.
right?
It's going to affect traffic, it's going to affect schools, but it's also going to affect lifestyle
Mm.
and livelihood in that neighborhood. So a lot of impact is going on. And if I show up for a listing appointment and I walk in and I said, "Hey, let's talk about what your home is worth." And they're like, "Well, how do you think this new development is going to affect our home value?" And if I'm a deer in headlights again, with no market knowledge of what is actually happening to
Chances
that
are the
neighborhood,
chances are the seller knows what's going on. That very
of
well
course,
might be the reason why they're moving, right? They're like, "Oh, I don't
it
wanna
very
deal
well
with a
may be.
change." But if you show up and this is the first you've heard of it, you're probably not gonna get that listing, or at least not
Yeah.
confidently so, right? All right, so the first listing expert agent strategy is to, focus on branding and reputation. The second is to have market knowledge and expertise. The third.
Now, before we go on,
Mm,
Chris, I do want to point out like these two things. This is all about being an expert in the seller's mind. This is about building trust.
mhm.
Everything, actually, I think everything we're talking about today is talking about building trust. And so always keep in mind what is in it for me. Well, what's in it for you is you're building trust as we go through this. But that's not where we stop building trust, Chris.
No, having an effective listing appointment process, because that is in many ways how your reputation, where the rubber meets the road, right? It
Hmm.
is where your market knowledge and expertise, that might be the first time where they're really going to experience what it's like. And so we need to have a very effective process to be able.
So hold on. I want to put a timeout right there
Mm,
because you talk about process. Let's talk about what typically happens.
mm.
I'm excited as a listing agent. I get a call or an email, and a seller's like, "Hey, I want to let you know, our neighbor or our friend or we are thinking about selling our house, and we want to talk to you about that. Are you available to meet with us?"
Let's
Our instant
go.
gut reaction is like, "I'll be right there." And before I even hit send on that email or the text message, I'm knocking on the door and hitting
Let's
send at the same time.
go.
"Hi,
I
I'm
can
here."
help you.
And so that actually defeats the process because it doesn't allow, like you said, the process. That's
Mm,
not a process, that is a reaction. And the consummate professional is not reactive.
mhm,
What we do is we have a process. We're going to work with them through our process. Chris, let's talk about what that
mhm.
process is because it's not about going and knocking on the door and having a listing appointment. It is a listing appointment process.
Yes, and ours consists of an initial consultation, right? That's where we're going to consult with them over the phone beforehand. It includes a pre-listing packet. This is where we're going to send them an email with information in it. And then the third part is the actual listing appointment where we share our listing presentation with that prospective seller. And what happens by having this effective process in place is everything that needs to happen, meaning that the information gathering that needs to happen takes place. The rapport building before the appointment takes place. The giving people a preview and insight into the concrete reasons why they need to hire us is being sent to them in the pre listing packet before the appointment takes place. Then we show up for the appointment. And then again, there are a series of steps and conversations, most importantly, that need to happen so that what happens at the conclusion of the listing appointment, Gary?
So, what happens at the end of that listing appointment is that sufficient trust is built and we hit the coup de grace, and that is everybody agrees to work together and we get a signed listing agreement.
Yeah.
So, that's the whole point of the entire process. But without that process, it's ad hoc. It feels um, disjointed. It just
Well,
feels
the most
awkward.
common response that you could hear then would be, "We'll get back to you. We'll be in touch." Right?
We're going to sleep on it and we'll be in touch.
That.
And here's the thing: if you ever want to know, like a lot of agents ask me, so how do I know that I lost the listing? It's when you hear these words. We'll be in touch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that means you did not convince them. They were not
No,
persuaded. They did.
I here's the thing. I know if I leave a listing, my first listing appointment, if I follow my process and I leave that listing appointment without a signed listing agreement, I lost
Mm,
because I missed something along the
mhm,
process. I missed something in the steps. I missed something that was really important to them. And so I know that I've lost. But if I follow that process to a T and I build the trust and I identify myself as that reputable professional, and we meet in person and we come to a meeting of the minds, they're going to sign that listing
mm.
agreement at the listing appointment. I know I've lost when I walk out the door without it signed.
I think a common approach is to show up with, pen and notepad in hand and just start asking questions. And in theory, that seems like a decent process, right? But unfortunately, it's not effective. Why is that? Well, because you're showing up doing discovery. They don't really know why they should hire you over anybody else. You're just fact finding at that point. All of this could be done before you have an in-person meeting, by the way, so that you can show up with solutions and not just fact finding. Plus, you can, we talked about the number one determining factor that sellers use in choosing their agent is the agent's reputation. Well, the information that we send to them right immediately before the appointment in that pre-listing packet, that is going to amplify, define, and amplify your reputation in very concrete terms for that individual who's considering working with you. And the timing is absolutely perfectly because it's right before you're going to meet with them. So everything is fresh in their mind. Now, one of the things that we like to include, actually, this is part of our listing appointment process, but it is also included in our pre listing packet, is our property marketing plan.
Yeah. And so, what is that? Well, it is a plan that I'm going to use to market your property, hence the property marketing plan.
Well, it's the number one task that the seller wants us to do, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, when it comes down to selling the home, they know that they want us to list, market, and sell it. They might think they know what the price of the home is. We're going to help them with that too. However, that whole marketing part of it is the part that they don't understand. Now, if we don't go into detail about what we're going to do, they think we don't do anything, by the way.
Well, that's not true, Chris. That's not true. They think that we do three things. They think that we put the home in the MLS, that we put the sign in the yard, and then we sit back and we pray that the
Right.
house sells. So that is what they actually think is happening. And by the way, the best way to determine if that's true or not is just call some expired listings.
Hmm.
Call them and say, why do you think your house didn't sell? You know what the number one answer is I hear,
I've
Chris?
I've 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 heard it. The agent didn't do anything. Right.
My agent didn't do
And
anything.
that may not be true, and oftentimes
It's
it's not.
probably not true, but
Mhm,
it wasn't communicated,
mhm,
and hence, having that property marketing plan that clearly defines and delineates all of the different aspects of the actions and
mhm.
practices we are going to take to market their house to prospective buyers. So, Chris, let's talk about not just that, but what are some side benefits that I, as a listing agent, could have and utilize this property marketing plan for?
So, property marketing plan. I know a lot of people, I think, use them today. But last time I checked, it was about 25% of any audience that I've surveyed, they actually had a property marketing plan that listed out everything that they were going to do for that seller.
Right.
So here's what happens with it: is it is your property marketing plan becomes part of your value proposition. What I mean is that it is part of the promise of what you're going to do for that customer. And it's a promise in very concrete terms because it's not like about the promise of, "Oh, I'm going to get your home sold." All right. Like that's one of your promises. And maybe you have other promises that you've inferred. Hey, I'm going to get it sold for this much or thereabouts. I'm going to get it sold for this time frame that you're hoping for, right? Those are all, whether we guarantee it or not, it's part of the promise that we're making to our customers. We're going to do our best to get this price and to get this done in the time frame that you want, right? Well, the next question is, okay, that's good. How? How are you going to do that? And your property marketing plan is a way for you to answer the how in very explicit and detailed terms that you really can't do when you're meeting with that customer. You can't do it because you're going to be bore the crap out of them. And all they have to do is scan it and the damage is done. What I mean by that is now they expect anybody else that they're going to work with to share a property marketing plan with them. I like to call it ethically sabotaging the competition because that's what happens, right? Is they see this and they just scan it and they're like, well, Gary, they don't. They're not even going to understand all the terms that are in there. That doesn't matter. It's a clear plan of action, and maybe some of the things they don't understand, but hey, Gary's got this. Gary's going to do all these things. Gosh, I'm glad. By the way, it's part of the reason why then they say, I'm glad I've got Gary to take care of all this stuff. A lot of us tend to shield our clients, whether buyers or sellers. We like to shield our clients from.
Biggest mistake you could ever make is shielding your clients from what you're actually doing to take care of them. And I was actually taught this early in my career, Chris, is that clients just want the end goal, and that is they want to get to the closing table and get their check.
Mm,
That's not actually the
mm,
case. The truth of the matter is that they want to see that what you're doing to
mm,
earn what you're earning.
yeah.
And by shielding them, they believe that it's super easy to make the commission that you have earned.
Nothing could
And
be
in
further
fact,
from the
think
truth.
about this. Well, think about this. Have you, as an agent, if you've been in the business long enough, you have, but think about how many of your past clients end up getting their real estate licenses.
Because you made it look too easy.
Exactly. Because here's the thing, they're like, "Oh, wow, Gary made that look so easy. I'm gonna quit my gig. I'm gonna quit my teaching job or whatever it is, my corporate
And Gary
job. I'm gonna go do what Gary did because it's so easy to make
yeah.
that amount of money." And so if you have a whole lot of clients who quit their jobs in order to become real estate licensees, it's probably because you're not informing them
Mhm.
of everything that you're doing. And it's doing yourself a huge disservice because it also doesn't allow them an opportunity to see your value and share it with others.
Right. Well, that's a big part of having a property marketing plan too. Is it's a great referral tool, right?
Yep.
So, because I, as your client, am what am I going to do once I list my home? I'm going to be telling everybody, "Hey, I just listed my home. I just listed my home. We're moving." So they're going to be having this conversation about moving and listing their home. And they're going to run into people because they are now a walking, talking billboard for selling real estate at that point. They're going to run into someone else who says, "Oh, I was thinking of selling. Is now a good time to sell? Who are you working with? Oh, are they good? Are they reputable? Because I have questions, but I don't really know who to go to." Here's what they say. Gary's great. But I'll just send you his property marketing plan. You can get a sense of what you should be doing, and then you can run that by your agent. Here's the thing: people are oftentimes afraid. Oh, you share your property marketing plan before you have a listing agreement? Absolutely. Absolutely. Aren't you worried that they're going to take that property marketing plan and give it to another agent? That agent's going to do it? Absolutely not.
Chris, you have a great term
Yeah.
about this that I love because it comes from a place of abundance and not of
Yeah.
fear.
Well, you never want to let fear of the competition prevent you from communicating why somebody should hire you, right? You
Right.
never want to let fear of the competition prevent you from articulating your value. If you're afraid of the competition and you're therefore then afraid to share your plan with prospective customers because you're worried that they're going to go do something else with it, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm not going to give you the concrete reasons why you should hire me until after you do. Why would you rob yourself of that power? Why would you rob yourself of that tool to be able to give them the concrete reasons? And here's the thing: what happens is now they can confidently hire you. This is an important step, by the way, before you start communicating what your fees are, is they got to know what you're going to do. It can't just be, I'll produce this result for you, because everyone promises the end result,
Right.
including the person, if they're an expired listing, for example, including the person who let them down, promised this great result that they did not fulfill on. So, what's going to make you different? What's going to make you different is I have a concrete plan. Let me share it with you. Right. And
But then you actually have to fulfill on it, and that is where the satisfaction comes in.
yes. Now here's the whole. It's a full move, right? When you think about it. Now, when I communicate my fees, you know what you're paying for and why I'm going to charge what I charge because of everything that's articulated in my plan, right? They've got now this tool that they can refer to others and do so with confidence now because they know that, oh, Gary just doesn't talk about getting a result. He shows me how he gets it done. Right. So these are all really, really important steps to being recognized as a listing expert agent because you're going to be doing and saying the things that listing expert agents do by having that reputation and that brand in the marketplace, by having that market knowledge and expertise, by having a really effective listing appointment process to make sure you're communicating all these points, which includes an effective property marketing plan. But unfortunately, you could do all these things and still not get to work with any sellers because you don't have a way to generate listing leads, right? So,
Well, that's step so I like how you organize this, Chris. Is these are all the things that we need to do to be listing expert agents. Now let's talk about how do we, after we gain these skills, how do we generate listing leads?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times people just jump to this part of the conversation is, well, how do I get listing leads? Not realizing that they're going to waste a tremendous amount of their investment by generating opportunities that they are not going to actually close. Right now, a
Right.
lot of times they are hidden losses, meaning that most listing appointments that you lost, you never had in the first place. Right, like you're losing more listings before the listing appointment process even happened. Just go take a look at your data. Nobody does this, Gary. I know you've done it, but most people never go back and analyze their database to say, of my past clients, how many of them sold their house and did so with somebody else?
Well, statistically speaking, Chris, did you know that about three-fourths
Hmm.
of your past clients who bought homes with you listed and sold with somebody else?
Yeah, and that's according to National Association of Realtors, right? They would rather get a referral to somebody new than work with you again. Ooh, that's
And
gotta
it's
sting.
either because we didn't produce that value in the first
Mhm.
place, we didn't stay in touch, or our branding and reputation was so poor that they just don't even look at us as that listing expert agent, and they went and sought out somebody who had that that branding and reputation.
Well, they might have thought we were good enough, right, to help them
Mm.
buy a home, but when it comes to selling it, they did not see that we had a compatible skill set or a competent skill set of what they were hoping and expecting. There could be a lot of reasons why it happens, but this is why having um, a series of activities or campaigns running, because generating listings and listing leads and seller leads, it's not like it's not like a once and done thing. Yeah, I
Right.
don't just pick up the phone one time, make a phone call, like these are they're not processes, but they're ongoing activities or ongoing campaigns because consistent marketing is what has to happen. Think about it. Consistent marketing, isn't that part of consistent branding and reputation?
Sure.
Right? Like if you're showing up consistently in my inbox, in my social media feeds, in my direct mail, if you're showing up consistently in my videos that I consume on YouTube, if you're consistently there, doesn't that speak to the consistency and reliability of my reputation? Right. And so I think what if you really want to become a listing expert agent, you're going to need multiple sources or multiple campaigns or multiple activities that are generating listing opportunities for you.
Well, let's talk about some of these, Chris.
Yeah.
I think we have like let's talk about five of the top
Mhm.
activities that I've done in my career that generate me the most consistent amount of listing business in my pipeline.
Yes. Well, the first one that I always like to tap into is if because I asked Gary one day, I was like, "Hey, if your next meal depended on you getting a listing, what would you do?" And you're like,
Move up program.
the move up campaign is a way for you to tap into circumstance, right? People's circumstance. And what's more is you can come to them with a really specific offer of help. Now, what I find really interesting is whenever there's any kind of adjustment in the market, could be home values, could be mortgage rates, could be programs, could be really anything that is a catalyst for people to move, right? That's a good opportunity to start dropping the move up buyer program. Now, I know you have a really specific target group of people that you like to work with, which is anybody who you've sold a home with 3 years or more, and you just start sharing CMA compared to like you share a CMA with them, share your property marketing plan with them, touch base with them, and let them know how much equity they've created over the past since whenever they bought that home. And so that is a really easy place to start cultivating opportunity. Why? Well, they already know you because you're reaching out to past clients or your sphere of influence, even if you haven't necessarily sold them the home or you help them buy the home, but it's reaching out to the people that you know so they know who you are. And now you're bringing to them this new information, this interesting information, backed up with facts and information, and just an offer of help if you would like to
And
discuss more.
Chris, who doesn't want to know what their home is worth and how much equity
Yeah,
they have in their
very
home?
useful. Very useful.
Every time of course, they want to know that. So that's the first one is the
Right.
move up program. Number two, Chris,
Open houses.
open houses. Man, I'll tell you what, so many agents say, man, I'm just starting in this business or I want to expand into this different marketplace or neighborhood. What's the best strategy to do this? We have a very strong open house strategy to help you build brand in that neighborhood,
Mhm.
you gain instant knowledge, and then everybody knows about you.
Yeah, just hosting open houses on a consistent basis, at least a couple times a month, that's going to whether you have market share in a neighborhood or not, that's going to appear like you do, and it's the starting point if you don't. It is the maintenance point if you do have market share, is to be able to maintain and grow that market share, and open houses, are probably one of the most effective activities that you could do on a Saturday or Sunday to generate more opportunities.
But Chris, this is a question I
Mm.
already see popping up right
What
now.
if I don't have
But
any
Chris,
listings?
if I'm hosting an open house for my brokerage, um, isn't that just generating buyer leads?
Oh, no, no, no. I mean, remember, the number one determining factor that sellers use in choosing their agent is the agent's reputation. You
And
hosting an open
buyers,
house, that is your the proof in the pudding. I am like, and they don't even it doesn't even have to be your listing, by the way, but you are there working that open
right?
house. That other sellers are going to come by and check it out. We've been thinking about
Exactly.
selling.
Sellers are so often disguised as buyers.
Yeah,
Why? Because they're curious. If we're thinking about selling our house, we want to go see all the open houses and pretend we're buyers because we need to see
yeah.
what our competition is doing. And so the more concrete reason that you have for them to talk to you and to hire you and to build your brand in that neighborhood, the more opportunity you're going to have with these prospective sellers.
Have you ever run into someone, at an open house and you find out they live in the neighborhood? But they don't tell you that they're thinking of moving. They're like, "Oh, we're just curious to see what's going on.
And we're just
We're
curious.
just
We live a few
we're
blocks
just
over.
taking a look. We're just curious."
It's like, who wastes their time?
They're not curious. They're
They're not
curious
just
about
curious.
selling
They're
their
not
home.
going through all these open houses just because they're, like, curious. No,
Yeah.
they're curious about selling
Yeah.
their
Most
house.
likely, they're curious about what's this home look like so I can get an idea what my home is worth. And you have to meet people where they're at though. It's not like they're going to be just jumping out of the woodwork to say, "Yeah, come over and let's talk about how you can help me sell my home." You have to have an effective set of questions. Again, a process designed to pull those that information out. So, open houses very very effective. Expired listing campaigns. That's like one of the tried and true efforts. A lot of
Yep.
people though use an ineffective approach. There are probably cold calling. Many of them are probably breaking the do not call list rules in the process.
Probably, and they're probably also fibbing,
Yes.
on their calls by saying, "Hey, Chris, I noticed that your home is no longer up for sale. I'm working with buyers in the neighborhood." No,
Yeah.
they're not.
Again, I think here, our version, our approach is to provide a lot of data and information about the market and how we can get their home sold through the property marketing plan. So now they've received something from us. So now when we follow up, we have a reference point of value that we've provided. But again, the damage is done. They already see, gosh, this person is doing way more than what my agent did. Because remember, they think that their previous agent didn't do anything because they didn't share a property marketing plan with them, right? And so expired listings, especially if you're farming, you may not want to like reach out everywhere. If you're in a metro area or something that has a large footprint, you may want to just focus on a handful of neighborhoods where you're trying to create market share. But it's not, it's good. It's a good one because you're going to run into people, just like an open house. You're going to run into people who are in the market to buy and sell. Same thing with expireds. Many of them have not left the market, just contractually they have, but they haven't left the market to sell their
No,
home.
they still wanna sell, they just don't wanna sell with that
Yeah.
agent any longer, so that's something to always keep in mind. Now, Chris, one thing that I hear from a lot of agents is like, "Yeah, I send out all this information, I'm doing these postcard mailings, I'm doing this
Mm,
outreach, but, nobody's reaching out to me," and I often think of, like, it's maybe because they have no idea what true trust building activities are and
mm,
what it's like to work with you until they do. So how do we
mm,
overcome that kind of hurdle, that speed bump of I can't build trust fast enough because they're not meeting with me. And I know my best ability to convert them is to meet with them so I can show
mm.
them what I'm like.
Well, I would say that many of us, on top of that, we're not casting a wide enough net. So when you're sending your marketing out, it has to you can't just fire marketing off without consideration of the core principles around marketing, which is right person, right message, right time. Okay? Like Your marketing is guaranteed to fail if you haven't considered right person, right message, right time for any marketing piece that you're going to have.
So what does that mean?
So right person is, does this person even a candidate to receive my marketing? Because I'm going to tell you, the entire population is not a candidate to receive your marketing. If you're selling real estate right now, roughly 5 million homes are going to sell. That means roughly 5 million people are your market, right? Nationally, in your local market, it's going to be different, but you get the idea where the only people who are really going to care about real estate related marketing are people who are thinking about real estate. And that's not everybody all the time. So that's one thing. Another thing about aspect of right person is, if you're selling real estate in Austin, Texas, me sending you a message about selling real estate in Philly, there's a little bit of a disconnect there. That's not the right person for me because I'm in Austin selling real estate in Austin, not Philly. I'm from Philly, but I'm not going to be able to help you. So that's right person is making sure that we have thought about who that right person is and what are the messages that are going to appeal to that person. That's what the right message is for. Now, in order two things go hand in hand, right? When I say who is the right person, all of a sudden there's going to be a definition, there's going to be criteria, there's going to be attributes, there's going to be things that they care about. So now I can craft the right message for that right person. Now I can craft the perfect message for that right person, but if I don't send it to them at the right time or the right place or the right context, they may never get the message, right? If I have a really long message, for example, that has a long website URL or phone number to get a hold of me, to be able to take advantage of my listing strategies, to be able to help you sell your home and so on and so forth. And I have all this information that you're supposed to act on a billboard next to a
On the
freeway
interstate, and I'm doing
where they're
70
going
miles
70
an hour
miles an
down the road.
hour. Like, it's just not going to work. Why? Because it's the wrong time for that message. And so
Right.
that's one of the things that you have to remember. Now, one of my favorite ways to be able to overcome this, cast a wide net, make sure the message and timing and the right person is got some wind behind my sails, and at the same time give people a taste of what it's like to experience my expertise, my knowledge, is using our 1 minute video strategy, right? And this is where you're going to literally hack the algorithms for social media and YouTube and so on and so forth to be able to produce short, brief messages, video based messages that
Mm.
let the algorithm do the work, where we just focus on our market knowledge and expertise. And by
Sure.
doing so, people get a taste of what it's like to work with us. By doing so, because of the format that it's in, it's going to get distributed to a lot more people. You could repurpose these same videos and start sending them to your prospective sellers that are already in your pipeline. But using this 1 minute video strategy means they're bite sized video. It is why YouTube Shorts, it's why Instagram Reels, it's why TikTok, they all exist, because people are very, very willing to consume a video that is 1 minute long, right? It's very easy to also, once I get one hit, to do another and another and another. Next thing you know, I watch 20 minutes of video because I watched 20 of your videos that have just kind of
Well,
been
you know
kept.
what I love about this, Chris, is that I've met with prospective clients that I've never met before in person.
Mm-hmm.
And I meet them and I hear this over and over. They say, I feel like I already know you
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen your videos.
Mm.
And I started thinking about that and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And then I started thinking about this. I was actually out in LA not long ago and I saw one of my favorite actors eating at a restaurant.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, there he is. I feel like I know him
Was that
already.
Arnold
My wife's
Schwarzenegger?
like, it wasn't Arnold. But
Okay.
but my wife's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I feel like I know him
Mm.
because I've seen all of his movies."
Yeah. Well, isn't
And
that
I feel
funny?
like I could go up and have a conversation with him because I feel like I already have a relationship with him.
I did this.
And
I actually did this to an influencer in Austin. All right, so there's a YouTuber named Ryan Trahan. He lives in Austin, and my kids watch all of his videos. And over the summer, I was at Barton Creek or at Barton Springs, and I had the family there, and we're like, well, we get in the water. It's really cold there. It's like 68 degrees, so you get in and out of the water. All of a sudden, I see this very familiar looking face, and walking down, he's got like a couple of people, some video cameras, and I was like, "Hey, that's Ryan Trahan, the YouTuber."
yeah,
Now I happen to know him too because I took a video editing course that he happened to teach, all online, by the way. So he didn't know me, obviously, but I knew him because I had taken this course on video editing and doing thumbnails. And so my kids were all like sitting there, like, "Oh, that's Ryan Trahan." Here's how comfortable I felt about Ryan Trahan. I just walked up to this YouTuber. He's got, like, you can look him up on YouTube. He's got a tons of followers. I walked straight up to him and said, "Ryan, I just wanted to say thank you. I know you don't know me, but I feel like I know you because of this course you taught through Creator Now." And he was like, "Well, thank you." He actually shook my hand. He asked me if how I enjoyed the course. Thanked him. Went on with his day. My kids were in all of this, right? And
Yeah, but the thing is that he built trust with you because of that
oh yeah,
video experience, because he took what Hollywood has created, and that is this video format
mm-hmm.
of us being able to communicate our expertise, our knowledge, our persona to somebody completely unknown to us. And then they feel like they're meeting somebody
It
known.
builds a
There
powerful
is
connection.
an enormous amount of trust built,
Mhm.
and the way you can do that is through Chris's 1-minute video
Yeah.
campaigns. It's a very, very powerful strategy.
Very easy strategy to follow. If you're curious about learning more about that, just go to our website. I believe we have blogs and stuff like that on doing 1 minute videos. Now, the last campaign I want to talk about, and this is probably the most important one. If it's the only thing you do, this is the one you need to do, which is your reputation marketing and what we call our 5 step real estate marketing system. And all you're doing is you're taking valuable, useful real estate related information each month in the form of like a blog post, and then sharing that and distributing that through email and social media and video and direct messaging, all of the different ways of communication that we have, that same message. And what happens is this taps into the lion's share of the business, which is the referrals, the repeat business, the business from your sphere of influence, the people who know you and know who the people who know you, right? It's getting those recommendations and more 5 star reviews that you're attracting more people. And by the way, that's like 70% of the business, right? It's when
Well,
sellers,
that's the whole thing, Chris, is if we want to reduce or potentially eliminate the number of customers that we allow to go get hired by or to go hire some other listing agent and sell their house with them, there's no better way for us to eliminate that gap and to take back our market share than by using this strategy.
yes. And so all of these are effective. Like I said, that's probably the most important one. I really challenge people to take 3 or 4 and have 3 or 4 of those 5 running simultaneously. We actually have a lot more. Over the years, have many listing strategies and campaigns that we've created. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a listing expert agent, running more marketing campaigns, definitely check out our listing expert agent program. We call it LEAP. You can learn more about it at thepaperlessagent.com/leap, LEAP. You can also get tons of free resources around working with listings on our website, on our blog posts. We've got listing presentation resources, listing appointment resources, and everything in between. So definitely check those resources out.
Yeah, and so thank you so much for joining us today and listening to us talk about some very powerful strategies to become that listing expert agent. If you enjoyed this, you like this, make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we cannot wait to see you on our next episode.
Take
Take care.
care.